Lisa Chen stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of her corner office, watching the morning rush hour traffic crawl through downtown. 15 years ago, she had been down there too, driving her beat-up Honda from office building to office building, armed with nothing but a bucket, some cleaning supplies, and an unshakable belief that she could build something bigger. Now, at 38, she was the CEO of Clean Pro Services, a company that employed over 200 people across 3 cities. The numbers on her computer screen told an impressive story. Revenue had grown 12% this year. They had just signed their biggest contract ever with Meridian Corporate Center. Her company cleaned everything from small law offices to massive hospital complexes. But something was bothering her, and it had been for weeks now. It started with the anonymous suggestion box she had installed 6 months ago. The idea came from a business magazine article about improving employee communication. She thought it would help her stay connected to her workers, maybe get some ideas for improving operations. What she got instead was a steady stream of complaints that made her stomach turn. The first few notes seemed like typical workplace grumbling. Someone complained about the coffee in the break room. Another person wanted better parking. Lisa could handle those kinds of issues easily. But then the complaints got darker and more detailed. One note, written in shaky handwriting, claimed that supervisors were forcing people to work without safety gloves to save money. Another said workers were being denied bathroom breaks during 8-hour shifts. The most recent one, which sat on her desk right now, described something that made her hands shake as she read it. The night supervisor at the Meridian building makes us reuse dirty mop water because he says we're wasting supplies. Yesterday, Anna fell down the stairs because she was rushing to finish the 3rd floor in half the time it should take. When she asked to go to the hospital, he told her she'd be fired if she left early. She worked the rest of her shift with a twisted ankle. Lisa had read this note 5 times now. Each time her disbelief grew stronger. This couldn't be happening in her company. She had built Clean Pro on the idea of treating workers fairly. She offered health insurance, paid vacation time, and wages that were above the industry average. At least that's what her reports told her. She picked up her phone and called David Morrison, her operations manager. David had been with the company for 7 years and had helped her expand into new markets. She trusted him completely. "David, I need to talk to you about some employee complaints," she said when he answered. "What kind of complaints?" His voice sounded concerned, which reassured her. At least he cared about these issues. Safety problems. Workers saying they don't have proper equipment. Claims about unrealistic time schedules. There was a pause. "Lisa, you know how it is. Some employees will always complain no matter what you do. We've got a few troublemakers who like to stir things up. I can look into it, but I think you'll find these are isolated incidents blown out of proportion." "What about the woman who hurt her ankle at Meridian? Anna something?" "Oh, that. Yeah, she slipped, but it was her own fault. She was wearing the wrong shoes. We have safety protocols, but some people just don't follow them. She's fine now, by the way. Back to work the next day." Lisa felt a small wave of relief, but something still nagged at her. "Can you send me the incident report?" "Of course. I'll have it to you by end of day." She hung up and tried to focus on other work, but the anonymous note kept pulling her attention back. The handwriting looked genuine, desperate even. Would someone really make up such specific details? That afternoon, she received David's incident report. It was brief and clinical. Employee slipped due to improper footwear. Minor injury. No time lost. There was no mention of dirty mop water or impossible time pressures. According to the report, Anna had refused medical attention and continued working by choice. But the report felt incomplete somehow. Lisa had worked these jobs herself in the early days. She knew how dangerous it could be to rush through cleaning tasks, especially in tall buildings with lots of stairs. She also knew that good supervisors would insist an injured worker seek medical attention, not threaten their job. Over the next week, more anonymous notes appeared. A complaint about a supervisor selling cleaning supplies and keeping the money. Another about workers being forced to clock out for breaks they never actually got to take. Each time Lisa brought these issues to her management team, she got the same response. Isolated incidents. Disgruntled employees. Nothing to worry about. But Lisa was starting to worry a lot. She decided to visit some of her work sites unannounced. Maybe seeing operations firsthand would put her mind at ease. Her first stop was the Meridian building on a Tuesday afternoon. She found the day shift supervisor, Carlos, and introduced herself. "Everything running smoothly here?" she asked, trying to sound casual. "Oh yes, Miss Chen, very smooth. Your timing is perfect, actually. We just finished the morning deep clean. Want me to show you around? The tour was impressive. The building sparkled. Workers moved efficiently through their tasks. Supply closets were well stocked and organized. Carlos introduced her to several employees who all smiled and said positive things about their jobs. See, this is Anna, Carlos said, gesturing to a woman mopping near the elevators. She's one of our best workers. Always reliable, never complains. Anna looked up and smiled, but Lisa noticed something in her eyes. Not fear exactly, but caution. When Lisa asked how she was doing, Anna glanced quickly at Carlos before answering. I'm doing very well, thank you. I like working here very much. The words were right, but something about the way Anna said them bothered Lisa. Still, what could she do? The woman seemed fine, and Carlos was clearly running a tight operation. Lisa visited 2 more sites that week and saw similar results. Clean buildings, organized supply rooms, happy workers. Her management team had been right. The anonymous complaints were probably from a small group of problem employees. But the notes kept coming. They watch us like hawks during the day, but at night it's different. Night shift is where the real problems happen. If you want to know what's really going on, you need to see it after dark. This note was different. It didn't just complain about a problem. It issued a challenge. Lisa read it 3 times, then walked to her window again. The sun was setting, painting the office buildings orange and red. Somewhere out there, her night shift workers were starting their jobs. What was really happening in those dark buildings after everyone else went home? Lisa had always prided herself on being a hands-on leader. But she realized she had never actually worked a night shift since the company grew big enough to hire managers. All her late-night visits had been brief check-ins announced ahead of time. She saw what her supervisors wanted her to see. The next morning, she made a decision that would change everything. She called her sister Jenny, the only person she trusted completely. I need your help with something, Lisa said. And it's going to sound crazy. What kind of crazy? Jenny asked, laughing. The kind where I pretend to be someone I'm not to find out what's really happening in my own company. The laughter stopped. Lisa, what's going on? Lisa told her about the complaints, the perfect tours, the feeling that something was being hidden from her. By the time she finished, Jenny was quiet for a long moment. You're talking about going undercover in your own business, Jenny finally said. Yes. That's either brilliant or completely insane. Lisa looked at the latest anonymous note on her desk. This one was shorter than the others, but somehow more powerful. Please help us. We can't speak up because we're afraid of losing our jobs. You're our only hope. I think it might be both, Lisa said, but I have to know the truth. Jenny stared at her sister across the coffee shop table, shaking her head slowly. You want to do what exactly? Go undercover as a new employee, Lisa repeated, stirring her latte nervously. I know it sounds crazy, but I can't shake the feeling that something is seriously wrong. Every time I visit during regular hours, everything looks perfect. But these anonymous complaints keep coming, and they're getting more detailed. Lisa, you're the CEO of a 200-person company. Don't you think someone might recognize you? Lisa had thought about this for days. Most of our employees work night shifts in different buildings across 3 cities. I only interact with management-level people face-to-face. The cleaning crews probably wouldn't know me if they saw me on the street. Jenny leaned back in her chair. Okay, but even if they don't recognize your face, what about background checks? Social security numbers? How are you going to fake being someone else? This was where Lisa's plan got complicated. I've been thinking about that. You still work in HR at the hospital, right? You understand how the hiring process works. What if we created a complete identity for me? Someone who exists on paper but is totally separate from Lisa. Chen? You're talking about identity fraud. I'm talking about investigating potential criminal activity in my own company. Lisa pulled out her phone and showed Jenny the latest anonymous note. Look at this. Someone is claiming that workers are being forced to use dangerous chemicals without proper ventilation, that people are getting sick and being told to keep quiet about it. If this is true, I could be legally responsible. Jenny read the note twice. These are serious accusations. Exactly. And if I can't trust my own management team to tell me the truth, how else am I supposed to find out what's really happening? Over the next hour, they worked out the details. Jenny would help create the false identity using her knowledge of employment systems. They would need a social security number that wouldn't trigger red flags, employment history that would check out if anyone called references, and a background story that would explain why this person was suddenly looking for cleaning work. "We'll call her Maria Santos," Jenny suggested. "Recent divorce, needs work immediately to support 2 kids. That explains why she's willing to take night shift work and doesn't have recent employment history. What about the social security number? I have a friend who works in HR at a temp agency. She told me once that they occasionally get applications with numbers that belong to people who died years ago, but haven't been updated in all the systems. It's not technically legal, but it happens more than you'd think. We could find one of those." Lisa felt a chill. "Is that safe? For a short-term investigation? Probably. But Lisa, if you get caught, this could destroy your company and possibly land you in legal trouble. If these complaints are true, my company might be destroyed anyway. I'd rather take the risk and know the truth." They spent the next week creating Maria Santos. Jenny found a social security number that belonged to a woman who had died in another state 5 years earlier. They created a simple resume showing Maria had worked as a house cleaner for several families who had since moved away. The phone numbers went to burner phones Jenny purchased. They even created a small apartment lease agreement showing Maria lived in a modest neighborhood across town. The hardest part was changing Lisa's appearance. At 38, Lisa was polished and professional. She wore expensive clothes, drove a luxury car, and carried herself with the confidence of someone who had built a successful business. Maria Santos needed to be completely different. Lisa started with her hair. She dyed it from sleek black to dull brown and cut off 6 inches. The expensive highlights disappeared. She bought contact lenses to change her eye color from brown to green. At Goodwill, she found clothes that were clean but clearly secondhand. Jeans with faded knees, plain t-shirts, a worn jacket that had seen better days. But the biggest change was learning to be Maria mentally. Lisa practiced changing her voice, making it softer and less confident. She studied how to walk differently, with less purpose and authority. She watched YouTube videos about changing body language and speech patterns. "I need work really bad," she practiced saying to Jenny. "My kids are depending on me." "That's good, but don't overdo it," Jenny advised. "You want to seem desperate for work but not suspicious. Just be someone who needs a job and is willing to work hard for it." The application process was nerve-wracking. Lisa had never applied for a job at her own company. She filled out the paperwork as Maria Santos, listing her fake address and fake employment history. When they asked for emergency contacts, she listed Jenny under a different name. 2 days later, Maria got a call to come in for an interview. Lisa sat in her car outside the Clean Pro office building, watching her own employees walk in and out. This was surreal. She was about to interview for a job at the company she owned. The interview was conducted by Patricia Williams, the HR coordinator Lisa had hired 2 years earlier. Patricia was professional but clearly rushing through the process. She barely looked at Maria's resume. "Night shift cleaning at the Meridian building," Patricia said, reading from a list. 8 p.m. to 4 a.m. Monday through Friday. $40 per hour, paid weekly. You'll need to provide your own transportation. Can you start tonight? Lisa was shocked. $40 per hour? She knew she paid her workers more than that. According to her report, starting wage was $55 per hour. Where was the extra $15 going? "Yes, I can start tonight," Maria said, trying to keep her voice steady. "Great. Report to the Meridian Building Service entrance at 8 p.m. Ask for Tony Fletcher. He's the night supervisor. He'll show you what to do." Patricia handed her a single sheet of paper with basic safety information and a time card. No detailed training schedule, no employee handbook, no orientation about company policies. Lisa remembered approving a comprehensive new hire program just last year. What had happened to it? That evening, Lisa drove to the Meridian building wearing Maria's clothes and carrying a lunch in a brown paper bag. She felt like she was preparing for a role in a play, except the stakes were real. If her employees were being mistreated, she was about to experience it firsthand. The service entrance was in the back of the building, down a poorly lit alley. Lisa had never even noticed this entrance during her daytime visits. She found Tony Fletcher smoking a cigarette by a dumpster. He was a big man with graying hair and clothes that had seen too many cleaning chemical spills. "You the new girl, Maria?" "Yes, sir." Tony looked her up and down with an expression that made Lisa uncomfortable. "You ever done this kind of work before?" "Yes, I cleaned houses for several families." "This ain't houses, sweetheart. This is commercial cleaning. You keep up or you're gone. We don't have time for hand-holding." He led her into the building through a service corridor she had never seen. The difference from the main lobby was stark. Flickering fluorescent lights, water stains on the ceiling, the smell of industrial chemicals mixed with something less pleasant. "Supply closet is here," Tony said, opening a door that revealed shelves that were only half stocked. "You get one set of supplies for the whole night. Don't ask for more because there ain't any more." Lisa looked at the supplies. 2 bottles of all-purpose cleaner, 1 roll of paper towels, a mop that had seen better days, and a bucket with a crack in the bottom. "What about gloves?" "Gloves?" Tony laughed. "This ain't surgery, princess. You got hands, use them. But the chemicals... Look, you want this job or not? Because I got 3 other people who called today looking for work. People who don't ask stupid questions." Lisa swallowed her response. This was exactly what the anonymous complaints had described. "I want the job, smart girl. You're doing floors 3 through 8 tonight. Vacuum all the carpets, mop all the hard floors, empty all the trash cans, clean all the bathrooms. You got 8 hours to finish. Don't take any breaks except for lunch, and keep your lunch to 30 minutes. What about bathroom breaks?" Tony's expression darkened. "What about them? I mean, if I need to use the restroom during the shift, you're a grown woman. Figure it out. But don't expect to stop working every time you feel like taking a break. This building needs to be spotless when the office workers show up tomorrow morning." Lisa followed Tony to the elevator, her mind reeling. 8 floors in 8 hours sounded reasonable until she started calculating. The Meridian building had massive floors with dozens of offices, conference rooms, and bathrooms on each level. Even working efficiently, each floor should take at least an hour and a half. That meant 12 hours of work squeezed into 8 hours. "One more thing," Tony said as the elevator climbed to the 3rd floor. "You see other workers tonight, you keep your mouth shut and do your job. We don't pay you to socialize. And if you got any complaints about anything, you keep them to yourself. People who complain don't last long around here." As the elevator doors opened on the 3rd floor, Lisa saw the scope of what she was supposed to accomplish in one night. The hallway stretched in both directions, lined with office doors. She could see conference rooms, break areas, and bathroom signs scattered throughout the floor. "Good luck," Tony said with a smirk. "See you at 4 a.m. The elevator doors closed, leaving Maria Santos alone with her inadequate supplies and an impossible task. Lisa had just gotten her first real taste of what it was like to be an employee in her own company, and it was worse than she had ever imagined. Maria Santos stood alone on the 3rd floor of the Meridian building, staring at the endless hallway ahead of her. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, casting a cold white glow that made everything look sterile and unwelcoming. She checked her watch. 8:15 p.m. 7 hours and 45 minutes to clean 5 floors. She started with the offices, quickly realizing that the task was even more overwhelming than it had seemed in the elevator. Each office wasn't just a simple room to vacuum and dust. They contained multiple desks, filing cabinets, bookshelves, and personal items that needed to be carefully worked around. The conference rooms were worse, with long tables surrounded by chairs that all needed to be moved to clean underneath. By 9:30, Lisa had finished only half of the 3rd floor, and she was already exhausted. The mop bucket had cracked further, leaving a trail of dirty water wherever she went. The cleaning solution was so diluted it barely seemed to clean anything. She had to go over the same spots multiple times to get them even reasonably clean. The worst part was the bathrooms. The supplies Tony had given her were completely inadequate for the job. She needed proper disinfectants, scrub brushes, and rubber gloves. Instead, she was trying to clean toilets and sinks with watered-down all-purpose cleaner in her bare hands. Around 10 p.m., she heard voices echoing from the stairwell. 2 other workers appeared on the floor, both women who looked to be in their 50s. They were moving quickly, pushing carts loaded with supplies that looked much better than what Maria had been given. "You're new," said the taller woman, whose name tag read Carmen. She had kind eyes but looked tired. "Yes, first night. I'm Maria. I'm Carmen, this is Rosa. Word of advice, don't let Tony catch you talking to us. He doesn't like it when the new people get friendly too fast." "Why not?" Rosa glanced around nervously. "Because he's afraid we'll tell you things you shouldn't know." "What kind of things?" Carmen and Rosa exchanged a look. "How long have you been working cleaning jobs?" Carmen asked. "A few years, but mostly houses. This is different. Commercial cleaning has rules, but not the kind they tell you about in training." Carmen moved closer and lowered her voice. "See those supplies we have? We've been here long enough to know where Tony keeps the good stuff. New people get the leftovers, but why? Because if you quit in the first week, he doesn't waste money on you. Most people don't make it past 3 days. Lisa felt a chill. What do you mean most people don't make it? The workload, Rosa said simply. What they're asking you to do tonight. It's impossible. They know it, we know it, but they don't care. They figure you'll either find a way to cut corners that gets the job done fast or you'll quit, and they'll hire someone else. What kind of corners? Carmen looked around again, then pulled a small bottle from her cart. This is what cleaning solution is supposed to look like. The liquid was dark blue and smelled strong. What they gave you is probably 3 parts water to 1 part cleaner. It won't disinfect anything. That doesn't seem legal. Lots of things that happen here aren't legal, Rosa said quietly. But if you complain, you're gone. And most of us can't afford to lose this job, even if it's terrible. A door slammed somewhere on the floor below them, and all 3 women froze. Tony's making his rounds, Carmen whispered. We need to get back to work. Listen, Maria, if you want to survive here, you need to understand something. There are 2 sets of rules. The ones they tell you about and the ones that actually matter. What do you mean? They tell you to take a 30-minute lunch break, right? But if you actually take 30 minutes, you'll never finish your floors. So you eat while you work or you don't eat at all. They tell you to use proper safety procedures, Rosa added, but they don't give you the equipment to do it safely. So you either do the job without protection or you don't do the job. They tell you no overtime, but they give you more work than you can finish in 8 hours. So you either work for free or you don't finish and get fired. Lisa's stomach was turning. This was exactly what the anonymous complaints had described, but hearing it from real workers made it more vivid and horrifying. Why don't you report these problems to the company? Carmen and Rosa looked at each other and laughed, but there was no humor in it. To who? Tony? He's the one creating the problems. HR? They only care about keeping costs down. The company owner? She's probably never worked a real day in her life. She wouldn't understand. Lisa wanted to tell them that the company owner was standing right there, that she did understand, that she would fix these problems immediately. But Maria Santos couldn't say those things. What about the suggestion box? The anonymous complaints? You mean the complaint box that Tony empties every week? Rosa shook her head. Half the notes never make it to management. He reads them first and throws away anything that makes him look bad. Lisa felt like she'd been punched in the stomach. The anonymous complaints she'd been receiving were just the ones Tony had decided to let through. How many others had been thrown away? Heavy footsteps echoed in the stairwell, getting closer. Go, Carmen whispered urgently. Get back to your floor. And remember, whatever you see tonight, whatever happens, you didn't hear it from us. Lisa hurried back to her mop bucket, mind racing. She had been undercover for less than 2 hours and had already discovered that her company was operating in ways that were completely different from what she'd been told. The workers were being systematically cheated, endangered, and intimidated. At 11:30, Tony appeared on the 3rd floor. Lisa was still only halfway through the 4th floor, working as fast as she could but unable to keep up with the impossible schedule. Problem? Tony asked, looking at the floors she still had left to clean. I'm working as fast as I can, but there's a lot to do. There's always a lot to do. That's why they call it work. He looked at his watch. You're behind schedule. The supplies you gave me aren't really working well. The cleaning solution seems watered down and the mop bucket has a crack in it. Tony's expression hardened. Let me explain something to you, Princess. You're not here to complain about supplies. You're here to clean floors. I don't care if you have to use spit and a paper towel, these floors better be spotless by 4 a.m. But if the cleaning solution isn't strong enough, are you arguing with me? Lisa realized she was on dangerous ground. No, sir. I'm just trying to understand how to do the job right. The job is what I tell you it is, and right now, I'm telling you that you're wasting time talking instead of working. I've got 3 people on my list who want this job. Don't make me call them. Tony walked away, leaving Lisa alone with her inadequate supplies and impossible task. But now she understood the system. Workers weren't given the tools they needed to do the job properly, then blamed when they couldn't meet unrealistic standards. It was designed to keep people desperate and afraid. Around midnight, she encountered another worker on the 5th floor. This one was a young man who couldn't have been more than 20. He was limping. Are you okay? Lisa asked. Twisted my ankle yesterday, he said, not stopping his work. Slipped on a wet floor. Did you report it? File an injury claim? He looked at her like she'd suggested flying to the moon. And get fired? No thanks. I need this job. But if you're injured, look, I don't know you, but let me give you some advice. In this job, you keep your mouth shut and do the work. You don't report injuries, you don't complain about safety problems, and you definitely don't trust anyone who says they want to help you. Why not? Because the last person who filed a complaint about working conditions got fired 3 days later. They said it was because she was late, but we all knew the real reason. Lisa watched him limp away and felt a rage building inside her that she had never experienced before. These were her employees. She was responsible for their safety and well-being. And instead of protecting them, her company was systematically abusing them. At 2 a.m., she was still on the 6th floor when she heard shouting from somewhere below. She crept to the stairwell and listened. Tony's voice carried up from the 4th floor. I don't want to hear excuses. You're paid to clean, not to whine about your problems. Please, Mr. Fletcher, I just need to call my babysitter. She was supposed to pick up my daughter at midnight and that's not my problem. You should have thought about that before you took this job. Just 5 minutes to make sure she's safe. You want to make a phone call? Do it on your own time. Clock out, make your call, clock back in. But I'm not paying you to worry about your personal life. Lisa realized what this meant. The worker would have to stop her paid time to make a phone call about her child's safety, then work extra hours for free to make up the time. It was exactly the kind of systematic wage theft that the anonymous complaints had described. She heard crying, then footsteps moving away. A few minutes later, she saw Carmen hurrying up the stairs with tears in her eyes. Carmen, are you okay? Fine, Carmen said quickly, wiping her face. Just fine, but she wasn't fine. None of them were fine. Lisa was beginning to understand that her company wasn't just failing to protect its workers. It was actively harming them. And the people she had trusted to run daily operations were the ones causing the most damage. By 4 a.m., Lisa had managed to finish 4 of the 5 floors she'd been assigned. She was exhausted. Her hands were raw from the chemicals, and she felt like she'd been hit by a truck. But more than that, she felt ashamed. As Maria Santos gathered her inadequate supplies and prepared to clock out, Lisa made a promise to herself. Tomorrow night she would be back, and she would keep coming back until she understood the full scope of what was happening to her workers, because what she had seen tonight was just the beginning. Maria Santos returned to the Meridian building the next night with a small recording device hidden in her jacket pocket. Lisa had spent the day researching employment law and discovered that most of what she'd witnessed was not just unethical but illegal. She needed proof. The second night was worse than the first. Tony assigned her 6 floors instead of 5, claiming she had been too slow the previous evening. When she asked about the cleaning supplies, he told her she should be grateful to have a job. A lot of people would love to work here, he said, lighting another cigarette by the dumpster. Don't make me remind you how replaceable you are. But Maria was learning the unwritten rules. She arrived early and found Carmen and Rosa in the supply closet, sharing the good cleaning products they had hidden behind boxes of broken equipment. Here, Rosa whispered, handing her a bottle of actual disinfectant. But don't let Tony see it. If he finds out we're helping you, we'll all be in trouble. Why do you help each other if it's so risky? Because if we don't help each other, nobody will, Carmen said simply. The company sure isn't going to help us. Over the next week, Lisa worked 3 different buildings and discovered that the problems at Meridian weren't isolated incidents. At the Westside Medical Complex, she met Roberto, a maintenance worker who had been with the company for 8 years. 8 years, and I still make the same wage I started with, he told her during a brief conversation in the supply room. Every year they promise raises, but somehow there's always a reason why it doesn't happen. Budget problems, performance issues, company policy changes. Have you tried talking to HR? Roberto laughed bitterly. HR, Patricia Williams? She's Tony's cousin. You think she's going to take my side over his? This was news to Lisa. She had no idea that Patricia and Tony were related. It explained a lot about why employee complaints weren't being properly handled. What about going higher up? Talking to management? Who, David Morrison? He's the one who told Tony to cut costs any way he could. As long as the buildings look clean in the morning, nobody cares how we get it done. Lisa felt sick. David Morrison was her operations manager, the person she trusted to oversee all the cleaning operations. According to Roberto, David was directly ordering supervisors to cut corners. The revelation got worse. That Friday night, Maria was assigned to work at the company's newest contract, the downtown law offices of Mitchell and Associates. The building was smaller than Meridian, but the work was more detailed. Lawyers demanded perfection, which meant extra time on every surface. The night supervisor here was a woman named Kelly, who seemed more professional than Tony. But within an hour, Lisa discovered that Kelly was running her own scheme. "Time cards go in this box," Kelly explained, pointing to a metal container by the service elevator. "But don't fill them out yet. I'll tell you how many hours to write down at the end of the shift." "How many hours to write down?" "However many I tell you to write down. Sometimes it's the actual hours you worked, sometimes it's less. Depends on how the budget looks for the week." Lisa was stunned. "What if I work 8 hours but you tell me to write down 6? Then you write down 6, but that's how it works here. You want full pay? Work faster. Finish in 6 hours, I'll pay you for 6 hours. Take 8 hours, I'll still pay you for 6 hours. It's called incentive." Lisa realized this was systematic wage theft on a massive scale. Kelly was stealing money directly from workers' paychecks and probably keeping some of it for herself. "What if I refuse?" Kelly's friendly demeanor disappeared instantly. "Then you can find another job. There are plenty of people who want to work here." That night, Maria worked alongside a woman named Grace who had been with the company for 3 years. Grace was efficient and thorough, but Lisa noticed she was constantly checking her watch and seemed anxious. "Are you okay?" Lisa asked during a brief break. "Just trying to finish by midnight," Grace said, scrubbing a conference table frantically. "Why midnight? Our shift doesn't end until 4. Grace looked around nervously. "If I finish the assigned work by midnight, Kelly lets me go home. But she only pays me for 6 hours no matter what. So you're working 6 hours for 6 hours pay, but you have to finish 8 hours of work?" "Exactly. And if I don't finish by midnight, I have to stay until 4 a.m. and still only get paid for 6 hours. Lisa was beginning to understand the full scope of the fraud. Workers were being pressured to complete impossible amounts of work in shortened time periods, then paid for even fewer hours than they actually worked. The supervisors were pocketing the difference. The following Monday, she called in sick as Maria and spent the day researching her own company's financial records. What she found made her hands shake. According to the payroll reports David submitted to her, workers were being paid the wages she had approved. But according to what she was seeing in the field, workers were receiving much less. The difference wasn't just being stolen. It was being reported to her as a cost-saving measure. David had been telling her that he had found ways to improve efficiency and reduce labor costs. She had praised him for finding ways to maintain quality while saving money. In reality, he was stealing from workers and lying to her about it. That evening, she returned to Meridian as Maria, but this time she was on a mission. She needed to find evidence of the financial fraud. During her lunch break, she slipped into Tony's office when he stepped out to smoke. His desk was a mess of papers, coffee-stained reports, and overflowing ashtrays. But hidden under a stack of supply invoices, she found something that made her blood run cold. 2 sets of time cards. One set showed the actual hours workers had put in. The other set showed dramatically reduced hours that matched what was being submitted for payroll. Tony was keeping detailed records of his own theft, but the most damning evidence was a handwritten note tucked inside his desk drawer. "DM says keep labor costs under budget whatever it takes. Extra goes to quarterly bonus pool." DM could only mean David Morrison. Her operations manager wasn't just aware of the wage theft. He was ordering it. And the stolen money was going toward management bonuses. Lisa photographed everything with her phone, her hands shaking with rage. She was building a case that would destroy several people she had trusted completely. As she put the papers back, she heard footsteps in the hallway. Tony was returning from his smoke break. She quickly closed the drawer and slipped out of the office, her heart pounding. The rest of the week, Maria worked different shifts at different locations, each time discovering new problems. At the hospital complex, workers were forced to use expired disinfectants because purchasing new supplies would hurt quarterly profits. At the government building, the evening supervisor was selling cleaning supplies to other businesses and forcing workers to make do with whatever was left. But the worst discovery came on Friday night at a small office building downtown. Maria was working alone, cleaning a suite of accounting offices, when she overheard a phone conversation that changed everything. The night supervisor, Alex, was in the break room talking loudly on his cell phone. "Yeah, I've got it all set up," he was saying. "The new contracts start Monday. We'll use Clean Pro workers and equipment, but bill it through our side company. Lisa Chen will never know the difference." Lisa froze. Alex was using her workers and equipment to run a competing business while she paid for everything. "How much do you think we'll clear?" Alex continued. "With Tony and David taking their cuts, probably $40,000 a month easy. As long as we keep the workers scared and quiet, this could go on for years." Lisa had heard enough. This wasn't just isolated supervisor problems or minor policy violations. This was organized criminal activity involving multiple levels of her management team. They were stealing from her workers, defrauding her company, and using her resources to compete against her. As Maria Santos finished mopping the office floors that night, Lisa made a decision. She had enough evidence to expose the entire operation, but first, she needed to understand exactly how many people were involved and how long this had been going on. Because if Tony, David, Kelly, and Alex were all involved, there was a good chance this conspiracy went even deeper, and Lisa needed to know just how extensive the betrayal really was before she brought it all crashing down. The undercover investigation was about to become a full-scale criminal case, and Lisa was going to make sure every single person who had stolen from her workers and betrayed her trust would face the consequences. But she also knew that exposing this conspiracy would likely destroy her company's reputation and possibly end her business entirely. The question was whether saving her workers was worth risking everything she had built. For Lisa, there was no question at all. Lisa spent the weekend organizing her evidence. 6 weeks as Maria Santos had yielded dozens of photos, audio recordings, and documented instances of fraud, theft, and worker abuse. She spread everything across her dining room table like a detective working a complex case. The scope of the conspiracy was staggering. David Morrison, her trusted operations manager, was at the center of it all. He had been systematically stealing from workers while telling her it was cost-saving efficiency. Tony Fletcher and the other supervisors were running multiple side businesses using her equipment and workers. Patricia Williams in HR was covering up complaints and was related to Tony, which Lisa had never known. But the evidence also showed something else. Her workers were protecting each other in small, brave ways. Carmen and Rosa sharing supplies. Roberto training new workers on safety procedures the company wouldn't teach. Grace helping others finish their impossible workloads. On Monday morning, Lisa called her lawyer. "What you're describing could result in serious criminal charges," attorney Janet Rodriguez told her after reviewing the evidence. "Wage theft, fraud, conspiracy, possibly even civil rights violations. But you need to be careful about how you handle this. Some of the evidence was gathered through deception. What do you recommend?" "Document everything officially. Record a confrontation with witnesses present. Get them to admit to the illegal activities on the record. Then immediately implement changes to protect the workers while the criminal investigation proceeds." Lisa scheduled an emergency management meeting for that Thursday, telling her team she wanted to review operational efficiency improvements. David, Tony, Patricia, Kelly, and the other supervisors would all be there, expecting to discuss budget reports. They had no idea their careers were about to end. Thursday morning, Lisa arrived at her office early and set up a digital recorder. She also arranged for Jenny to be present as a witness, claiming she was considering hiring an outside HR consultant. At 10 a.m., her management team filed into the conference room. David Morrison looked confident and relaxed. Tony Fletcher seemed annoyed to be pulled away from his normal duties. Patricia Williams carried a folder full of what Lisa assumed were falsified reports. "Thank you all for coming," Lisa began. "I wanted to discuss some concerns about our operations that have come to my attention recently." "What kind of concerns?" David asked. "Well, let me start with a question. Tony, how many hours did you pay Maria Santos for her first week of work?" Tony looked confused. "Who? Maria Santos? New worker. Started last month at the Meridian building." "I don't know every worker by name, Lisa. We hire a lot of people." Lisa opened her laptop and pulled up a photo she had taken of Tony's time cards. "According to your records, Maria worked 36 hours but was paid for 24 hours. Can you explain that?" The room went silent. Tony's face went pale. I don't know what you're talking about, he said, but his voice had lost its confidence. Really? Because I have photographs of 2 sets of time cards in your desk. One showing actual hours worked, one showing reduced hours submitted for payroll. David leaned forward. Lisa, what's this about? Why are you investigating our payroll procedures? Because, David, I've discovered that you've been ordering supervisors to steal wages from workers while telling me it was efficiency improvements. She pulled out the handwritten note she had photographed in Tony's office and read it aloud. DM says keep labor costs under budget, whatever it takes. Extra goes to quarterly bonus pool. David's face went white. That's not what that means. Then explain what it means. It means we're trying to control costs and reward good performance. By stealing wages from workers? We're not stealing anything. Lisa turned to Patricia. Patricia, are you related to Tony Fletcher? Patricia glanced at Tony nervously. He's my cousin. Were you planning to mention that relationship when you were hired to handle employee complaints about Tony's behavior? It's not relevant to my job. It's not relevant that you're covering up complaints about illegal activities committed by your cousin. Lisa opened another folder and pulled out copies of complaint reports. I have documentation showing that you received 17 formal complaints about wage theft, safety violations, and harassment over the past 6 months. Your reports to me mentioned only 3 minor issues. Some complaints aren't worth bothering you with. Sexual harassment isn't worth bothering me with. Workers being forced to handle dangerous chemicals without protection isn't worth bothering me with. The room erupted in denials and accusations. David claimed he was just following Lisa's orders to reduce costs. Tony said the workers were lying and trying to cause trouble. Patricia insisted she was just trying to resolve issues without bothering upper management. But Lisa had recordings of them admitting to illegal activities. She had photographs of falsified records. She had testimony from workers who had been directly harmed by their actions. Here's what's going to happen, Lisa said, her voice cutting through their protests. David, you're fired immediately. Your final paycheck will be reduced by the amount you've stolen from workers. And I'm referring your case to the district attorney for criminal prosecution. You can't prove anything. I have 6 weeks of recorded evidence. I have photographs of your falsified records. I have testimony from multiple workers. And I have documentation of your side business using company resources. David's face went from white to red. 6 weeks? What are you talking about? Lisa took a deep breath. I've been working undercover as Maria Santos for the past 6 weeks. I've seen everything you've been doing to our workers, and I have evidence of all of it. The silence in the room was deafening. Tony's mouth fell open. Patricia looked like she might be sick. Tony, you're also fired. The police will be investigating you for theft, fraud, and harassment. Patricia, you're fired for covering up illegal activities and conflict of interest. You can't fire all of us, Patricia protested. Who's going to run the operations? I am, Lisa said. The way I should have been doing all along. Over the next hour, Lisa continued firing supervisors and managers who had been involved in the conspiracy. By the end of the day, she had terminated 8 people and referred 6 cases to law enforcement for criminal prosecution. But firing the criminals was just the beginning. Lisa knew she had to rebuild her entire company culture from the ground up. The next week, she held meetings at every work site to explain what had happened and what was changing. She started each meeting by apologizing. I failed you, she told the workers at Meridian Building. I trusted people to manage operations while I focused on growing the business, and those people abused you while lying to me. That stops now. She announced immediate changes. All workers would receive back pay for stolen wages with interest. New safety equipment would be purchased immediately. All time cards would be reviewed by independent auditors. A new anonymous complaint system would be managed by an outside company, not internal staff. But the biggest change was cultural. Lisa committed to working regular shifts alongside her employees, not as a supervisor but as a co-worker. She wanted to understand their daily challenges and make sure problems were addressed immediately. I know many of you don't trust management right now, she told the group. I don't blame you. But I'm asking you to give me a chance to prove that this company can be different. Carmen raised her hand. What if the same problems happen again with new supervisors? Then you report them immediately, and I promise they'll be investigated by people who don't have any reason to cover them up. And if you're not comfortable reporting through official channels, you can come directly to me. The transformation wasn't easy. It took months to hire and train new supervisors who understood that their job was to support workers, not exploit them. It took time for workers to trust that reporting problems wouldn't result in retaliation. But slowly, things changed. Workers started speaking up about safety concerns without fear. Productivity actually improved when people had proper equipment and realistic schedules. The employee turnover rate dropped dramatically. 6 months later, CleanPro Services was a completely different company. It cost more to operate with proper wages and equipment, but the quality of work improved so much that they were able to raise prices and attract better clients. The criminal cases were still proceeding through the courts. David Morrison was facing multiple felony charges. Tony Fletcher had pleaded guilty to wage theft and was serving community service while paying restitution to workers. Patricia Williams was banned from working in HR and was paying fines for ethics violations. But for Lisa, the real victory wasn't the criminal prosecutions. It was the day when Carmen approached her after a shift and said, "Thank you for listening to us. This feels like a real job now, not just survival." Lisa had learned that being a successful business owner meant more than just watching profit reports. It meant taking responsibility for the people who made those profits possible. It meant being willing to risk everything to do what was right. The undercover investigation had nearly destroyed her company, but in the end, it had saved something much more important: the dignity and safety of the people who trusted her with their livelihoods, and that was worth any amount of profit she might have lost along the way.